All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Stacy Graham-Hunt, the founder and CEO of Stacy Graham-Hunt Public Relations. I'm an award-winning journalist and publicist with 18 years of experience. I'm passionate about helping performing artists and entertainment organizations showcase themselves authentically to help them create bonds with their target audiences. I've launched this interview series to connect and learn from other women who work in the field of public relations and communications and to highlight the work that they're doing. Today is the very first interview in the series, and I am so honored and excited to interview my very first guest, Briana Regine Walston,
Right. Yes.
the founder and CEO of Briana Regine Visionary Consulting, which she's had for almost 8 years now. She has expertise in branding, social media, public relations, and operations. Briana is a UConn graduate who majored in communications and became the first alumna from UConn to be granted the Rising Star Award. She has also been named the 2023 Young Entrepreneur of the Year by the Small Business Administration of Connecticut and received 2022 Women in Business Award powered by New Haven Biz. She's worked with clients like the University of Connecticut, Celebrity Trailblazers, Adrian Jefferson, the Director of Cultural Affairs for the City of New Haven, the Breed Entertainment, where she is now, and the town of Waterford. Briana, thank you so much for being here today, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. We've already started talking, but I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to
No.
continuing.
Likewise. Likewise. Yes, I'm excited. It's always a pleasure to be thought of and to be thought of in a way that allows me to share my voice, share my experiences, and it's my hope that it sparks someone in a positive way. So this is great.
I'm sure it will. I really wanted to connect with you, like I said before, because of the work I had been seeing you do from afar, and because you're another Black woman that's doing her thing. And I first learned about you from the Ready Talk series, sponsored by the Connecticut Office of the Arts, which also is an interview series that you moderated.
Mhm.
So can you tell me more about the Ready series and about what that experience was like for you and how you got involved with that?
Yeah, so the Ready series was, at least when I moderated it, it was towards its earlier years. So pre-pandemic we're talking about, okay? Pre-pandemic. But it was brought to me as another vehicle to push the Ready principles. R stands for relevancy, E stands for equity, A stands for access, D stands for diversity, and I stands for inclusion. And those are core principles that the Connecticut Office of the Arts is really trying to incorporate into art spaces. And the series was a part of doing that. And so when they brought me on, I don't remember the year. It had to be 2019, maybe beginning of 2019, something like that. Um, they had brought in a professional from Sony Music. His name was Christopher Brown. And I have to say it like that because when it was broadcasted, I was like, Chris Brown. You want me to talk to Chris Brown? I mean, I could do it, but it was Christopher Brown from Sony Music, equally great, equally talented. And he basically gave great perspective about mainstream music and what it's like to create a brand and get it out there, and what does streaming look like, and what does marketing look like as far as labels go. And I was chosen to moderate that conversation, and it was one of the first that I did for the Connecticut Office of the Arts. I've done a few more since then, but yeah, it was great. It was well received. I think it was one of those areas of opportunity where folks in Connecticut realize that they can get value in the state without having to go to New York or Atlanta or Los Angeles.
That's a good point. I know when I started thinking about doing this work, I was like, oh, I need to move out of Connecticut. And I'm wondering when you first initially got into public relations and branding, did you have thoughts similar to that? And if so, like what kept you here?
That's an interesting question. So originally I'm from New York. I'm from the Bronx, but I've lived in Connecticut with my family for nearly, if not just shy of over 20 years now. So I was raised in Connecticut. I ain't going, I'm not going to bash it or anything like that. But I also love New York too. Uh, when I started my business, I didn't think that I had to go elsewhere. Maybe that was just me being headstrong. Maybe that was me also grasping the idea that, like, wait, there's something missing in the market that I can provide. And instead of going to these populated areas, I can literally start right here. It also could have been the fact of just the reality of my situation. Like, how am I going to get up and go
Right.
to another place? Like, I didn't have the means to do that. So that wasn't a thought that stopped me or made me think I had to go to a bigger place. If anything, it fueled me to be like, okay, I'm going to be one of the best in the state. Do I think that I am, confidently speaking? Yes. But I think the approach is different now. I feel like when you've been doing it for a while, it's more so like an internal confidence of being like, yeah, I know I'm that girl, but it's not the confidence or the drive of like, I want to be known by everyone that I'm the best, like it's different now. It's a different approach now, a
Almost
different
sounds
care.
like you're speaking from experience because you've done the
Yeah.
work and you're like, I know
Mhm.
I can do this work.
Correct. Yeah.
Can you tell me more about how you got into public relations and branding? I know you were a communications major, but that could have gone so many different ways.
Yeah. I almost feel like branding, marketing, communications, those are things that you do before you actually put the title on it. Like every time I talk to someone, they're like, yeah, I was doing that before I even realized that that's what I
Mm,
was doing. And that was pretty much the case. Before I started my own company in 2017, I was at a PR agency for the very first time. So on paper, that was the first time I was doing public relations as an intern and then an account coordinator. But prior to that, I was doing branding, marketing, even operations for small businesses, startups. I worked in every company type you could think of. I did corporate for a little bit. I did retail. I was a nanny. I was a babysitter. I did dance teaching. I was a marketing administrative assistant. Like I did everything you possibly could think of that gave me the transferable skills to create the business that I've created today. And that really laid the groundwork, I feel, to be able to say, I'm able to focus on public relations
mm,
because branding and marketing, at least conceptually, maybe marketing conceptually, branding for sure is a part of PR for sure. But those two things, I needed to get my feet wet a little bit to be able to understand how public relations complements those two areas,
mhm.
right? And how sort of serves as their cousin. Um, so yeah, I was doing it before I even realized that I that I was doing it, which tends to be quite common.
What are some of those transferable skills that you feel like you brought from such a diverse work experience?
Yeah, research, patience, knowing that no is not a no, it's a not right now. Creativity, thinking not only big picture, but also strategically as far as how different, areas of a campaign or how you even think about getting to that big picture are integrated into each other. Being concise in pitching.
Hmm.
School does not teach. School teaches you the opposite of that. Like you're taught how to write papers, and you should add this context to the email because of X, Y, and Z. But it's not until you actually do the work where you realize, oh, no one cares about that. Like get to the point quickly, but get to the point not only quickly but intentionally. And it's aligning value with value. And I think instead of jumping head first into public relations, having my other roles that got me equipped with branding and marketing only made when it was time to, okay, we're going to do media relations now, we're going to do sponsorships and partnerships now. Like it only made that experience for me more enriched because I had the transferable skills from everything else.
And I'm sure it helped you also know a little bit about a lot of different things also.
Yeah, no, it did. It did. And you know what's interesting? They say, when you're a jack of all trades, you're a jack of none.
Mm,
And I do believe that from the standpoint of get started first, find your rhythm, and then you can grow and build off of that.
mhm,
And when I first started, I knew I wanted PR clients because they have bigger retainers. They have bigger retainers, but the clients that I was attracting at first, they weren't ready for PR. And it took me a minute to realize that and to pivot my thinking of, okay, if they're not quite ready for PR because they didn't have enough of an established brand, they didn't have the media friendly assets, they couldn't see themselves as far as, okay, you're doing this on social, but this is how it can be amplified from PR. Like, it was too much education that had to be provided. Whatever those gaps were, um it allowed me to pivot and be like, okay, well, how can I still provide value to this client, still make money, still grow my business, and put them on a position to be PR ready? And when I first started, it was mostly branding and marketing that I was doing.
mhm,
PR came later. Um, Maybe I would still say within the first year, but it took time to find the client that was like, oh, okay, we can do a full blown campaign and see what comes of it. So yeah, it takes time. It wasn't one of those things where it's like, aha, you know. It definitely takes time for sure.
It's interesting you say that because, I have in my business name, public relations, and people will
Mhm.
say, "Can you put a marketing plan together for me?" And I can, but it's there you're right, there is some education about, you know, what's the difference between marketing and what's the difference between public relations. So, I think that
Mhm.
is spot on.
Yeah.
What would you say helped you, educate your clients, that weren't ready for PR, but that were like, maybe you can just help me promote my business.
Yeah. Yeah, it was doing the work and figuring out the qualifiers that I needed,
Mm.
and those look different year to year. Like, now I'm able to off the bat be like, "This ain't gonna work." I know you wanna start at point Z, but you're really at point A. But I can help you. Like, there are ways that we can work together to get you to point Z. But in my earlier years, obviously I didn't know that. So I took a lot on just to try and
Mhm.
figure things out. But through experience, you start to realize what those qualifiers are, and you can sort of be selective about what's going in the scope of work and in the contract. And
Mhm.
also even before that stage, being like, okay, do I want to work with this person because I see the potential in them, they see it in themselves, they're actually going to meet me in the middle, and we can make something happen. So it it wasn't off the bat of being like, "Yep, PR, that's my thing. We're gonna do that." It was definitely I know where I want to get to. I know what skills I want to have. I know how I want to provide it. I know who I want to provide it for. But it wasn't as clearly defined as it is now. And now I house everything under brand growth strategy because that's really what all of it is at the end of the
Mhm.
day. But it took me time. It took me time to even be able to articulate that about my own brand, right? Because before it was we do branding, marketing, communication. Da, da, da. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to start, and that wasn't helpful as far as my prospective clients being able to qualify if they want to work with me. So it's all trial and error, and it takes a minute to figure out the trades you're the jack of and figuring out which one you're going to pull the trigger with first and then scale over time with.
So you would say you've evolved over the almost 8 years.
Oh
What would
yeah.
so at year 8, what would you tell Briana Regine at year
Mm.
1? you tell that version of her, of you?
You want to know the real? Pay yourself first. Let's start there.
What does that mean?
let's let's start there. Um, and this is more so like a back end. This is more so like an operations um tip, but I do think that is important because I imagine the people that are going to be watching this series, like they can be interested in public relations, but they can be interested in it from a freelancer standpoint or working for another person or, building their own company. And I didn't pay myself first for years. Now, granted, when I first started my own company, I didn't have anyone else to pay but myself, but everything I got went right back in.
Mm,
And that was the case up until I would say year 3. Year 3, I think, is when I started to have like paid help. And even still, like they would get their cut and I wouldn't
mm,
get anything. We'll just go right back into the business. And every now and again I'll be okay, I'll pay myself like $100 or whatever, right? Which in proportion to what I know now, I could have paid myself more than that, but not when I'm paying myself now. Not now. It was different margins. But even up until last year, I'll be very honest, last year was a hard year. It was my hardest year in business. um year 6 was rough financially, and that was because I didn't pay myself. I was not paying myself, and there would be pockets where I would pay myself a little bit, but it wasn't consistent.
mm,
What I know now about finances and really making my business as healthy as it possibly can be, I wish I knew in year 1. But when you're a Black woman entrepreneur, you're starting out, you're really the only entrepreneur that you know of at the time in your family. There might be one other one, but you have to get over that hurdle of asking for help. And what does that look like? And you don't know. You don't know until you know. So I would definitely say be consistent about paying yourself from an operations perspective. And also too, um, just being continue to be authentic. And I know that's like a buzzword, like what does that mean? But there have been waves, as I'm sure everyone has experienced, where it's not that I wasn't authentic, it was just me trying out different things because I let different voices get in my head. Prime example, I had attended a webinar from an industry vet. This was earlier in my business, so probably like year 1, year 2 at the most. And she said, if you're Black, don't put yourself on your website. And I understood why she said that. I understood it. But I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. But I tried it out. I took it off. And I didn't have it off long enough for me to even tell you, yes, it worked. No, it didn't. Because I was, no, ma'am. Put your face back on that website right now. It didn't last very long. Right. So I think in those circumstances, it's just important to stay true to you. And not only from like an outside perspective, but internally, like a level of self-awareness. um I've always been self-aware, but even if I wasn't able to articulate why I felt a certain way, like listening to my gut more earlier on,
mm.
um it is really important. Your gut will always tell you yes or no. And even up until present day, I may bend on certain things, like, oh, let's just take it on because it'll be really good for the agency portfolio. My gut the whole time is like, if this is not an excited yes, then why are you saying yes? Take it on, drives myself insane. Worst project ever, right? So it's just one of those things where self-awareness, confidence in like knowing who you are, paying yourself first. And I'm much more closer to God now in my faith than I was when I started. But it could never hurt to be like, girl, tap in early. tap in right now. You'll be better for it.
One thing you made me think of was when you were talking about putting your face on the website. I remember thinking about hiring an intern, and I put an ad out And someone had emailed their father, thought they were emailing their father,
Hmm.
but had replied to me. And the father, somehow I got in the email chain, where this girl thought she was talking to her dad. And the dad wrote back and he was like, "Oh, this looks like a black company."
What does that mean?
Yeah, and so I wrote back to the group. I was like, "Yes, it is." And then she was like, "I'm so sorry. Like, I hope this." I
Mm,
didn't write her back after that because I was, for one, I was like, "What does that mean?" But also, like, there were some elements of confidentiality. Like if you're being a little sloppy with your emails and not
right.
sure you're emailing the right people, like I couldn't take that risk. But
Wait.
yeah, that's what it reminded me of. Her dad was like, "Oh, this looks like a black company."
I mean, honestly, if someone said that about my company today, I'd be like, and is.
Yes.
I think earlier when I started, it probably would have been like, what the hell? Like, not what I'm doing wrong, but just like, is that the impression that everybody has? Now it's more so just like, okay, if that's your impression, then we don't go together like that.
Yes, and that's how I felt. I was like, "Yes, it is." I wrote them back, but I
Yeah.
was like, "Yeah." Um, but, there was a part of me that was like, "Why should it even matter?" But,
Mm,
and then another thing you mentioned, so you mentioned, basically that you were putting all of your money back into the business. So I
mhm.
was wondering, how were you supporting yourself? Did you have a part-time job, or what were you
Good
doing?
question. Yeah, that's a good question. I have, thankfully, low responsibilities. I consider them low. I don't have many. Um Now I have a little bit more. But back then when I started, I didn't have much. So when I first started my company, I did have my part-time jobs a little bit. I didn't keep them for very long. And even the agency in New York that was paid. But when I left them, that was it. And it was minimum wage. I think my retail jobs paid me more than the New York job. But none of that overlapped long when I started my business. I think I started my business, it had to be less than $300. I'm pretty sure it couldn't have been more than that. And I lived at home. So, you know, I lived at home. And when I started, I also had been freelancing on the side. So, to be fair, by the time I got my LLC, I had one or two clients that was paying me whatever they were paying me. At the time, it was great. It was like, well, I'm doing something. Now it's just like, I would not advise. Like, even if you don't have any experience, just up it a little bit.
Yes.
Um, so I had something coming in. It wasn't a lot, but I wasn't completely at zero. And I also have my family. I'm very fortunate. I love my mom. I love my dad. I have a great support system today, and I had a great support system then. So my leap of faith, and this is something that I always say, my leap of faith was mine. And I was able to take it because of my support system. If yours looks different, assess your circumstances
Mhm.
accordingly, you know?
So you mentioned, your transition.
Mhm.
Did that happen naturally, or was it like because you said you were freelancing, so was a logical next step for you, just to set up an LLC, or were you intentional about, like, I want to be an entrepreneur someday?
That is so I always get a very like I always get that question in, well, how did you know? Or how did you start? I never got it phrased like that though. And I think the phrasing of that is very intentional, at least to me, because I never thought I'm going to start my business. I don't recall having that thought
Hmm.
ever, ever. And I don't know, it could be I'm a firstborn girl. So I got you go to school, you get get the degree, you get the degree, you go find a job. Like I got that because that's what my parents knew, right? Um, so while I was at the agency in New York, the internal grind that I had and the desire for money, like I was doing that, I was doing retail, and then I was freelancing maybe two or three clients on the side. One my friend told me about, and then two others I found off of Upwork.com when Upwork was more useful than it
Mhm.
is than it is now. I got a lot of leads and a good amount of clients from Upwork back then. Um, and one day it was just a feeling in my gut, like you could do this yourself and you can do it in your own way. That's how I explain the story every time because it's true. It didn't drop out it dropped out the sky, but no one put it in my brain or anything like that. It was just I'm in this agency. There's things that I like, there's things that I don't like. I feel like I can do something myself. Um, Knowing me, I probably did some research, but not a ton. It was more so my ambition and me being headstrong. And I went to my mom and I said, "Hey mom, so I graduate in like 3 months or so, but let's riddle me this. I had this thought. Uh, what do you think?" And she was like, "Okay, you have a year." And now I'm in year 7 going on year 8. Right? So it literally was just, I call it God speaking to me. Like, just do it. Just do it. And that's literally what I did. But again, that was my leap of faith. Everyone's
Yes.
leap of faith is not like that. And I think it's important to emphasize that in the same breath of explaining how easy my jump was, because not everyone has the circumstances that I had to be able to make the jump like I did.
Were there times, I know you said year 6 was difficult,
Mhm.
um, and I guess in those times, what kept you going? And did you ever have thoughts like, "Maybe I should just get a job, a full-time job?"
Well, in year 6, no. In 2020, yes, but not for the reason you may think. Not for the reason of like, business isn't doing well, because as far as my trends went, from like P&L, back end operation stuff, we were fine. We were fine. Um, it was more so the thoughts in my head. Like I was thinking of, okay, well, maybe I can achieve my other goals faster if I have more income coming in. So let me go and see what's out there. And in 2020, that was the first time I actually applied to other jobs. And I applied to 5 jobs. I got maybe 3 interviews, got close, didn't get any of them. And to me, that was God being like, now, why the hell would you, when I told you that this is what you're supposed to be doing? So that was the only time I've ever had well, let me just see about a full-time situation. Though year 6 was hard, I never thought, let me just go get something else. I never thought that. It was more so the thought of, what is God trying to teach me in this moment? And I'm only able to say that because therapy works wonders. Therapy is great. I think my trials and tribulations in year 6, I was able to deal with because I had attended therapy 3 years consistently prior to that. And because of therapy, forced myself to lean on my support system in ways that I hadn't before. Yes, it was uncomfortable, but it made me realize, oh no, these people can show up for me in this way
Mhm.
too. And I think just again leaning into my self-awareness and into my gut feeling, and even during the hard times, the fire never burnt out.
Mhm.
Never burnt out. Like I would be down for a day, and then the same day later that night be like, okay, you try again tomorrow. Like you still want to do it. And that it kept me going. Plus I documented the whole thing. So one day I'll release it. And that was something that I felt God told me to do too. He's like, one day just pick up the camera and start talking. And that's what I did. So I have tons of footage. I'm on there crying at least twice. Like, like I recorded it because I'm like, no one shows this part. Like everybody's talking about 6 figures. Da, da, da. Let's look at the P&L. Let's look at the cash flow. Are these people paying themselves? Do they have business loans? What's going on behind that? Like, So I picked up the camera and I said, I'm going to record this and I will release it, one, when I'm over the financial hardship. More importantly, when God tells me that it's time to release it. Because there's a lot of real, raw, unpretty stuff on there that paints a, at least I hope it'll paint a very real, inspiring, uplifting, and truthful picture of what it's like to build something from scratch and kind of be on a trend of like, we're doing well. And then it's not that we weren't doing well, it's just the terrain looks different as hell. What is this? You
Yes.
know? And people need to see that. People need to see that.
It's so true. Someone asked me, so I'm in year 2 of my business, and someone asked me what it's like, and I was like, I have the best and the worst days of my life all in the same day. So
Mhm.
I'll be like, this isn't working, and then somebody will pay me, or or a new opportunity will come. But this will happen all in the same 24
No.
hours. So I'm constantly like this, but trying to learn how to, like you're
Yeah.
saying, we're moving on faith, and even though it looks crazy, knowing that God's still holding me and we're just driving through some turbulence.
Listen, entrepreneurship is not made for the weak. I'll be very honest about that. It is not made for the weak. Do I think that it's impossible? No. But it takes a specific kind of person to be able to do it and to persevere. Um, because it's hard. And God pulled through like, oh, I cannot wait to, I haven't played it back either because I'm kind of like, oh, that's so cringe. But I know that I've captured moments where I'm just in awe of God. I'm
Mm,
like, how the freak? Like how?
yes.
How? Like so many of those moments happened for me last year. Like I'm getting chills thinking about it because I'm just like, bro, I went to bed and payroll was the next day. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know. So yeah, entrepreneurship is rough, but it's rewarding and it's easier to enjoy the ride when you cultivate a support system, but also like you need that faith. Like if it's not God, it's got to be somebody
Mhm.
because you have to believe in the thing that's not seen and you're literally building the thing that's not seen yet. That's what you're doing. You're waking up every day and doing that like a crazy person. Okay? So it's required of you to have faith, like be your wings when the physical you is just like I don't know, man. I don't know.
That's so true. That's so true.
Mhm.
Um, it's interesting that you're documenting or have documented your journey, like the behind the scenes. I have a list on my phone that I keep. When something good happens, it's called proof that it's working. And so,
Mm,
like, it could be something small, it could be something big, but I will, anytime something good happens, I'll put it on this document. And so now
yeah,
I have this growing list of things, like it's like my don't quit, don't give up, don't listen to your physical mind. Like, look, it's working. Here's your proof.
I
Um,
love that. I love that. I love that proof that it's working list. I think that is phenomenal. Because entrepreneurship is gonna test you. Like as your business grows, you grow, and
mhm,
vice versa. As you grow, your business will grow. And there's a lot of discomfort in all of it. In all of it. Every step of the way. It is not a pretty ride. I don't care what social media tells you.
mhm.
It's not pretty at all, but it's worth it. It's worth it.
Another thing that you've said it twice in different ways, but it's this kind of theme of like learning how to receive, learning how
Mm,
to be helped, learning how to be supported. And I think what you said before, as Black women,
mhm,
um, and sometimes because we're the first person in our family or in our circle, we feel like we have to prove that it is working, like we know what we're doing.
mhm.
And sometimes it makes it tricky to receive and be able to ask for help or if somebody sees that we're struggling, to admit that we're struggling and
Mhm.
receive their help. So I just wanted to highlight that because you've said it a couple different ways, but I think that is really important. Um, like knowing how to receive help and
It
support.
is. It is. And that's a part of the journey too, especially to the point I just mentioned about how as your business grows, you grow and vice versa. That's part of it. I don't care if you come from being in corporate, working 25 plus years, or someone such as yourself, you've been doing it for a while, but you're doing your business. This is your second year in business. Um, it doesn't matter. It's different. It's different terrain when you're doing it by yourself. And that imposter syndrome will kick in, that even if you're like, I don't have to prove anything to anyone, subconsciously you are doing things to prove things to other people. Like it's a whirlwind of like self-awareness. Is this who I am? Is that who I am? Is that who I want to be? Like it's all of that. And I feel like whenever I get a platform like this, that's why I do talk about the humanness of the work, especially when we're talking about PR specifically, because PR is a thankless job, but you're dealing with humans. It's odd, right? Like you're dealing with humans, you're trying to shape the perception of the human mind, but it's so thankless and it can be so uh, transactional, you know? Um, but yeah, you have to learn that it is okay to receive, and receiving doesn't mean that you don't know what it is that you're doing or you're not on the right track. And sometimes receiving will save you time. How about that?
Hmm.
And time is money. So you have to find what that looks like for you. I still do. I have my moments where I'm just like, ugh, I don't want to ask for help. But I think with scaling and being accepting of like, okay, well, if I do want to hit, Beyonce status in my company or whatever, she ain't doing it by herself. Hello. Where's convenience, right? It was soft girl life, right? Like there's that exists in business too.
Hmm.
I think you have to reframe and um, your mindset and just what you envision for your life, and not think that you have to struggle the entire way to get there.
Hmm.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's different. It's different because we're not used to that. Our parents definitely weren't. So why would we think that? I think this is why they shouldn't ban TikTok. You see, this is why they should. This is why they shouldn't ban TikTok, because on TikTok there's these conversations that do happen. Like you can go search this, and there's a community, a soft girl community, or black businesswoman, or whatever. Like you can find your tribe of people and realize, oh wait, so you're experiencing it too. You
Hmm.
know, um, it's just we need to be more vocal about it, because especially for millennials, it's different. I think Gen Z is getting like they're on the opposite side of the bridge. They're like, girl, if I ain't with it, it ain't going. They end it. Meanwhile, for us, we're teeter-tottering. Like we're unlearning a lot of the things in order to accept and receive the life that we actually want, and be like, okay, well, even though I didn't see it like mom and dad how they did it, I can have it differently, and that's okay too. You
Yes.
know? So, yeah. It's a journey. It's all a journey.
Um, who are some of your, you mentioned there are some communities on TikTok, but who are some of your role models, either in communications or just as entrepreneurs?
Mm, that's a good question. And I'm pausing because I haven't been asked this question before. I don't think so. And if I have, it hasn't been recently. And I feel like I'm pausing because I feel like I have so much tunnel vision, and I'm really
Mm.
big on like comparison is the thief of joy. So I'm mindful of what I take in, especially since I know that that can trigger my imposter syndrome, or me
Hmm.
to become anxious about things that I should be doing, but um but figures that I believe are great at what they do. And when I do see them, I'm like, yeah, man, like you're doing it. Yvette Noel Shore, of
Mm.
course. Of course. Ah, love her. Ernest Dukes is another one. Jalen McKee is another one. We're probably the same age, I think. And when I first started my company, I don't think she has started hers yet, but social media has kind of like kept us in loop with each other. And I think how she's been able to double down on public relations and partnerships, and really like become a trailblazer in entertainment and fashion. Like it's dope to see how she's doubled down on that, because at a certain point I thought that I was going to double down on that. And
Mm.
truthfully, for me, if I'm being very, 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 very honest, I know I can do PR, but the um it's not the sole road for me anymore.
Mhm.
You know, it's not this is gonna be the thing I'm known for. Now I'm kind of like, hmm, I can do it. People know that I can do it. But I'm sort of reframing what I want to be known for. Like I'm kind of reimagining myself a little bit and leaning more into the brand growth strategy element of it
Mhm.
all, how it's all connected. But I think she's dope. I think Angie Collins is great. She was one of the first people that I came across in Women in PR, and that was probably the only membership kind of situation that I invested in when I first started. Um, Respect the Publicist by Candace. There's a few of them. Generation PR I follow. Like I'm pretty in the loop. PR Girl Manifesto. Um, I stay in the loop enough, but to my point before, like this year honestly is when I'm really getting back in my PR bag, if I'm being very honest, based on the projects that I have. Um, and when I say back in my bag, that means I'm doing the work, right? So it's not that my agency wasn't doing PR before, it's just that I wasn't doing it. My
Okay.
my team was doing it. Um, because I business development, I'm thinking bigger, I'm thinking diversification. I'm also thinking of like what's my zone of genius as far as things that I want to do the most, the things that I enjoy doing the most. I enjoy strategizing and storytelling the most.
Mhm.
The pitching part, I'm kind of like, that's just me being very honest, because you have to pitch and then follow up. You know the work. And that you have to get in your rhythm. When I'm in my rhythm, oh yeah, I got it. But to get back into that, I'm kind of like, woo, all right, here we go, buckle up, buckle up. But yeah, there are great people doing great things, and even if I'm not actively doing PR, I'm always fascinated in the things that come across my desk, because when you do PR, or when you're just passionate, like overall about the work that you do, that's how you look at the world. Like I look at ads now and I'm looking at,
Mhm.
stories that break, and I'm like, the consumers don't even know the half of it, child. Like I view it in that way. And I'll always appreciate PR and just brand growth in general. I genuinely enjoy all of it. I
Mm.
enjoy all of it. There's just pieces of it that I enjoy more compared to the others.
You mentioned that you like brand development. What's your favorite kind of project to work on?
That has changed over the years. I would say now what's been consistent is working with projects that serve underrepresented communities. Like they want to get their story out, they want to make an impact on them. That's a constant. That drives me.
Mhm.
Anything else outside of that, I don't really have interests. It doesn't spark any sort of creativity for me.
Mm.
So that's a constant. I think outside of that, they, again, where I am now, it's preferred for them to have at least some element of the basics. So, like some sort of website, manifesto, something that can be built off of, right? Building things from scratch. I'm almost done. Building things from scratch. Consultation. Love a consultation. But actually, like, okay, they don't have nothing. Like there's
Mhm.
nothing at all. That's something that I'll bring it to my team. But if I'm solely doing it, no ma'am. No ma'am. And you know what? I'm jokingly saying these things, but it's totally true because as you grow a business and you touch different projects and national, international, federal, state, whatever, you start to realize the common factors among all of them and what is your ideal client.
Mhm.
And the ones that you'll want to be a part of in certain ways, and the ones that you're like, nope, that's all y'all. They'll do it, you know? So for me right now, I'm in a spot of diversifying ways that I can serve my target audience. It's something that I've had on my agenda since 2018. And it is so sad to look back at those plans and be like, you started this, but you haven't finished it.
Mm.
So for me, I'm trying to really break into the digital product space because I have so much knowledge, information, and I can serve more people by doing less. Um, and also getting back into the content and providing value in that way so that way I can attract people more effectively versus having to solely rely on cold outreach or word of mouth and things like that. So I have a business development hat on right now, which is why I'm giving the answer that I am,
Mhm.
um, as far as projects go. But as long as they serve underrepresented communities, we have a way to serve them, whether it be completely done for you, consultations, coaching, you know. Um, I started my business because I wanted people that felt like the underdog or who felt underrepresented that no, I can make this a thing. I just need the way. Like I need support and strategy. So it's very rare that I'll turn someone away if they check that box.
Mm.
And I can tell that they're serious about their investment and wanting to be of service want instead of solely wanting to make money because that doesn't get my creative juices going either. So
What do you tell the ideal client that just doesn't have the budget? Because I know that happens. You want to
all the
work with.
time, all the time. Um Now I'm less receptive to bending if I don't see another return on investment for where we're at. What I mean by that is, let's say a client doesn't have the ideal retainer. Um, if I'm like, this will be great from like a portfolio perspective, they check all the other boxes as far as like serving underrepresented communities. They align with the other industries that we serve, and they look good among everyone else. It could be a great case study. It'll just propel the agency forward, right? Um, no, not everybody's like that now. Those are few and far between now. When I first started, it was like, yep, let's go. You want to work with me? Great. And that's what you do. You take products on just to get the experience. Um, so I do have that internal conversation with myself if someone doesn't have a budget. I also have other ways of serving them, right? So although done for you services is and has been our bread and butter, we have coaching and consulting, which are not as costly as done for you services. And hence the reason why I'm trying to get digital products off the ground, because that'll be another opportunity to still service people, and not completely, not have anything for them and keep them in our pipeline. Because the goal is if I'm turning people away and we're having great conversation, 9 times out of 10, like it's very rare where it's like, I would never work with that person.
Right.
Especially now, especially like what's on my website, how we're branded, you can tell if you should book a call or not, you know? So the people that I tend to speak with now, they are a fit. They just don't have the budget. So if I can diversify the ways that I can serve them, keep them in the pipeline and get them to a point where they can work with us in the capacity that they like to and that we like them to as well, that's really the goal. So diversification is the answer.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So finding different ways to serve the ideal client, and whether
Yes.
and you say digital product, something you're meaning like maybe a book or video or course or something like that.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Or even just freebies, right? Like I have webinars and stuff that I've done. They're just not set up in a funnel. Yeah, so it's those sort of back and different kind of marketing, right? Different kind of communication that have to be set up and organized and planned and promoted and so still we're still doing what we do for other clients. It's just it's a heavier lift because it's not public facing yet. Like it's being built internally and it has to do with the agency. And I just hired an executive assistant to help me with internal stuff for the agency. Everything has been client fulfillment, client fulfillment, client fulfillment. Yeah.
And as you think about diversifying your offerings and products, what are some ways that you are keeping your skills sharp?
So I stay subscribed to the muck racks, the agility PRs, the spin sucks. There's a individual called Adrienne Weimer who's on LinkedIn. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. She's all about lead gen. So I keep my skills sharp by attending their webinars, by reading their newsletters, because it keeps me in the loop. So even though I'm not or this year I am, but prior to this year, I would say year 5 and year 6, I haven't been as involved with client fulfillment as I was in year 1 to year 4. I still attend those webinars and pay attention because I'm still in the conversations with my team about strategization, right? And building the bridge and thinking holistically. Like our agency is divided between creative strategy and operations management. And though different clients may want different things, our approach is always keeping the other in mind because collectively that creates brand growth, right? So I'm still involved in a lot of the strategy conversations. I still review things and I'm not super distant, but the diversification is just another way to better serve people, better carry my purpose. And it's something that's been on the to-do list since 2018 and it just hasn't fully, be fleshed out. But this is the year. This is the year. God said.
You mentioned hiring an executive assistant. How do you know when it's time to add somebody to the team?
When you're not operating in your zone of genius and you know it. So, prime example, when I first started branding, marketing, PR, that was my zone of genius. I loved every part of it, enjoyed it so much, top to bottom, end to end, loved it. Then, as the years went by, it became okay, I actually like doing more of the strategy part. I can look things over. I love doing research. I love conceptualizing about stories. Love that bit. Then it became okay. I actually like pitching these particular kinds of stories, right? Like for these particular kinds of clients. And then, or rather now, it's I really just want to scale my business to the next level. And that requires me to be not as involved with client work or being very, very, very selective about the client work that I'm doing and solely focusing on business development. Like that is the main thing. So through those epiphanies, it's realizing, okay, my zone of genius in this season is this. So, but all this other stuff still got to get done. So how am I going to make that happen? Am I going to allocate time to those things, or do I have capacity, resources to hire additional help? And that's really when you know, when the
Yeah.
same task keeps rolling over to the week or the month or the year,
Okay.
it's time to get some help. Or if you're becoming busy, maybe not with the quantity of clients but the quality of clients, these can be some really big projects. And if you're trying to do client fulfillment and business development and sustain your life, like, the quality is going to be sacrificed somewhere if it's one person. And if you don't want that to happen, you're going to need to hire help.
Mm. Mm. Um, is there one? Is there a news story right now, or scandal, or trend that you're following right now?
A news story or trend that I'm following right now.
Mhm.
Um, I don't want to give him. I can't stand this man. What? Trump child. I don't. I'm not into it to the point where I know every detail. But to your point about how do you stay like in the know with skills and trends and on top of your stuff, I have newsletters and MNBC, CNN, all those guys, the Skim. I get them all because I need to know what's going on. And it's mind-boggling to me. I read something this morning. I forget what it said. It's like at the tip of my tongue, but they said something, and my audible response was "duh," and it was in relation to whatever is going on with him.
Yeah.
So yeah, he I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But to make it more positive, not necessarily a scandal per se, but Beyonce, whenever I can talk about her, I absolutely will. She posted the photo of her Beyonce album that's coming out. It's not a country album. And I always lean on Beyonce because I think her and her team do such a good job of controlling their narrative and getting ahead of things and just shaping the perception that's not even inauthentic. Like, it's totally authentic and it totally comes from a place of integrity, but it's just so well done.
Mhm.
So her Instagram post today, I saw it about like 2 hours ago. I was like, wow, this is
Is it
fantastic.
her sitting on the horse?
And it's a full-blown caption. Full
I
blown captain. I was like, my wig, my edges were not worthy. Like everything that they do is just so well done. Even the drop of sacred and the essence cover, it was just it was well done. So again, that's how I view the world now. Like, I view the world from a branding, marketing, comms hat. And I'm always thinking of different ideas and partnerships and, well, what if they did this? What if they did that? That kind of thing.
So I know we're wrapping up, and it's funny that you mentioned Beyonce because I have like a few quick questions as we wrap up. They're supposed to be fun questions.
Mhm.
What music are you listening to on repeat right now?
Tori Kelly right now. Yeah, her album, not that I'm her publicist or anything like that, but her album's coming out, I think it's April 5th. And what they did was, I suppose she released the EP, but the album was going to have some of the songs on the EP. So I've been listening to the EP, but she's going to add more songs to create the final album. I've been listening to her back to back. Um, yeah, she's the main one. She's the first one that popped into my mind. Tori Kelly.
I'm gonna have to listen to it. And
Really
what
good.
is the last thing you read or watched that had you hooked?
Last thing I watched that had me hooked. Um, Hooked in the sense that it was short, one, two, and I feel like everybody loves Selena. So I watched the Yolanda and Selena Prime Video documentary. And it was just interesting. Again, I'm like, this is interesting. I can appreciate the human-centered aspect of it all because that's how I approach my work. Interesting timing, considering that she's like eligible for parole soon, So I'm like, okay, that's good PR. yeah, I would say that's the last thing that was interesting that I watched.
Did you feel any sympathy towards her?
Hmm, honestly, I'm indifferent.
Okay.
I'm indifferent. I left it being like, okay. I thought it was, I guess, well done because they included her family members that knew her and Selena and how they were like, I can't choose a side. So I
Yeah.
think it was put together well, but I'm indifferent,
Oh,
honestly. And that's coming from someone who is very empathetic. And maybe part of my indifference comes from like, okay, I could see her side. I could, but the person that has the other side is no longer here. So,
yeah.
mhm.
Um, if someone wants to reach out to you as a client or as a young entrepreneur or old entrepreneur that might be new and just want to talk to you about some advice,
Mhm.
someone thinking about a career in public relations, how can they reach you?
Yeah. Would love to connect. My email is Brianna, Brianna, at brvisionaryconsulting.com. You can also just go to brvisionaryconsulting.com and all of our socials and contact information is there.
Okay. And that was the last question. Is there anything that you wanted to add that maybe I didn't ask you, or any thoughts lingering?
I'm just grateful again for the platform in this conversation. I hope that even if it's one thing that folks take away that, they find it valuable to their journey. And I know we kind of spoke about a variety of different things, but when it comes to PR, because it is such or it can be a thankless job, all the more reason for you to really tap in and lean into who you are as an individual so you're able to navigate the different terrain that you will experience. And it's rewarding. Like it's rewarding to see the stories that you advocate for go live. It's rewarding to see a brand understand, oh, you did see the value in my client, let's partner up and have that come into fruition. Like all of those things are rewarding, and just being able to take an idea or a concept and amplify it through shaping public opinion is such a powerful tool. And even though the logistics of that can be a little bit muddy, it always ends up being rewarding if you put yourself in healthy situations.
Yes.
Let me say that.
So stick with it. It sounds like you stick with it. Receiving help, being able to receive support, uh,
Mhm.
leaning on faith. We talked
Yeah.
about that. Trusting yourself,
Yes.
trusting your gut. Those are the gems I took away from our conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I really enjoyed our conversation. I hope that we can stay in touch. Um,
Yeah.
again, thank you so much for being my first guest. This
You're
means the world
welcome.
to me. Um, so yeah, thank you so much. And if anybody's watching or will watch, thank you for watching.
Thank you.